What is up, College Football Nation? We are back. We are back with another week, a great week for DFS. I am super excited. Coming off a super hot week. I mean, we nailed it last week. The strategy of going cheap QBs paid off, and it was nerve-wracking because the North Carolina game last week was hot. Those scores were going off, and I was just looking at it like, oh, no, I made a big mistake. I didn't play as much of this game, and then my cheap QBs went off, which allowed all of my value plays to work out. So, using O'Connell last week, using some of the Memphis quarterbacks, some of these value quarterbacks really did work out. So, I'm going back to that well. I think this is another week where you want to maybe pay up at running back, but there's value to be had at quarterback and at receiver. So, there's a few games that we can easily ignore this week, which is really beneficial from a DFS perspective in terms of who we're going to target. So we can really dive into which games are attractive, where we want to look for stacks, and which games we can pretty much ignore. Let's get right to it, as always. So we're going to go through the depth charts for this week. I'm going to pull up my screen. We got Draftkings up. First thing we're going to do is we're going to start with this Oklahoma-Baylor game. So this is an interesting one. One of the toughest things, the most interesting things DraftKings has done this week is they've priced up a lot of players. So you're not going to be able to play all the stars, obviously. You're really going to have to pick your spots. This Baylor defense has been decent, pretty good. They obviously weren't good last week as the TCU quarterback who was minimum price went off on them. Caleb Williams can have maybe the highest ceiling in the slate. But I don't think he's must play at 10K by any means. This is not a game that's going to have the most plays run. It might be have a slower script. So at 10K, I like Caleb because, he can throw for 300 and run for 100 and a touchdown. So he can do everything, but I don't think we're maximizing plays and game script here. So if I'm going to pay my 10K, I think I'd rather use it elsewhere. I think they finally started to get to a price Kennedy Brooks appropriately. I like Kennedy Brooks a lot. I prefer him even in the lower half of the 7K range. I still think the price is a little high here. This Baylor defense isn't bad. So I think you can get some shares of this Oklahoma team. If Kennedy Williams is the way you want to go, I'm okay with that. Kennedy Brooks is the way you want to go, I'd be okay with that. And then on the receiver end, the guys we're looking at here are Mims, Hasselwood, Woods, Mario Williams. They spread it out too much, right? And the price, I can understand taking a shot on Williams or Woods because they're the less expensive options. I think they spread the ball around too much to go with Mims or Hasselwood. If you wanted to pair one of them with Williams, I'd be okay with it, but I'm not going to be highly exposed there. On the Baylor side, Bohannon is just like the definition of average. The price is probably right. I don't see a lot of upside. If you think this is a high-scoring game and you want to stack some of this Oklahoma game with him, I'd be okay with it, but not someone I'd be looking to aggressively. Smith and Ebner split the carries there. Smith is the guy. He's their go-to guy. I think the price is fair for him. Oklahoma is better against the run than pass, so they have a decent run defense, but Smith can break a few runs. So Smith is 7,100s in play. Ebner is more of a small tournament cash play for me. He doesn't have huge upside because he's the number 2, but he will get close to 10 carries. So if you need some value, I'd be okay with Ebner. And then on the receiving end, Thornton at 6,800 has been bringing it every week. I mean, he's in play. I like the more value plays here. I like RJ Sneed. He's hit or miss, but for a GPP, I think he has a lot of upside against an Oklahoma team that should score and then is not great against the pass. I'm going to play me some Sneed this week. And I know I like Drew Estrada. I'm totally okay with you not playing him, but if you're looking for value, if you think Oklahoma's going to stop the run and you're looking for some pass catchers at almost minimum price, Estrada is someone that you can take a flyer on. But again, that's a punt play for sure. Now heading over to this Mississippi State Auburn game, the SEC tends to have the better, stronger defenses. So, these aren't the biggest shootout games, if you will. Will Rogers is going to throw the ball 50 times. So, he's always in play. But this is a tough test in Auburn. You can play him if you want. It's not a must play by any means. Marks and Johnson, they split time. Marks is the number one, Johnson number two. Because there's so many targets, I prefer Johnson as the value play. Obviously, he's not as good overall in terms of raw projection, but in terms of points per dollar, I think I prefer Johnson. But either way, I don't love either guy against Auburn's defense. And then the passing game, the number one guy here is Mekhi Polk. I don't know why they put him down fourth. He's their go-to guy. 7,600 is a little pricey for him. I think there's some better top-tier receivers to look at. If I was going to go to the receiver end, I think I'd look at Wally or Austin Williams, who are more affordable and are getting involved in the offense, getting enough targets to be considered. Then over here on the Auburn side, I'm not a big Bo Nix fan. I think Tank Bigsby's interesting, but let's not forget Mississippi State's defense is also stronger against the run. So I actually prefer Bigsby, I think, in a tournament than a cash play because they can slow down the run. And I'm really not interested in this passing game at all. So really the only guy I'm looking at here is Bigsby from the Auburn side. Miles and Ivan, what's up? Welcome to the chat. How you fellas doing? Hope you guys have been winning money with me. We've had a few hot weeks. Last week was one, so I hope you guys won. If you have any questions for this week, please shoot them in the chat. All right, let's keep this moving. How about this West Virginia game? So West Virginia might be making a quarterback change. So let's keep an eye on that tomorrow morning. Let's look at the updates. The fact that we don't know who's playing quarterback is concerning. We know Doug doesn't do anything but throw, and they don't throw that much, so he's not really playable, even at the almost minimum price. Garrett Green's more of a runner, which makes me intrigued at a $5K price point. So if we know we're going to get Green, I'd consider him. But I need to have confirmation first. Letty Brown is hit or miss, but at this point, he's pretty affordable. At $6,100, I like that price. So I will be playing some Letty Brown with an affordable price tag here. But again, he's not the safest cash play, but he's a running back that gets the volume, and he can break off a few big runs. And then the receiving end, they just spread the ball. There's like 5 guys that get targets on this West Virginia team. So it's very hard to pick one. I suppose the number one's Winston Wright. I guess he'd be the one I would play, but I'm not too interested in this passing game. Over on the Kansas State side, I haven't seen the Skylar Thompson that we're used to seeing pre-injury. I mean, I know he's been a little bit better as of recent. And I just, I think this West Virginia team defense is a little bit better. I don't love Skylar. The play here is Deuce Vaughn, but at $10K, that's a lot. So, listen, I think Deuce Vaughn has slate breaking ability for sure. I mean, he does everything. He kind of reminds me of Darren Sproles, right? He catches the ball. He's small, but he's super explosive. 10K is a lot. So just if you really like this game, if you like the game script, if you really want to target them here, you can. I think we can do better for value, but if you like him, he certainly can be the highest scoring player on the slate. On the receivers, the guys you want to look at on this team are Brooks and Knowles. Brooks at 4K, I think you can play. He's certainly affordable enough. Knowles, I think, is a little too pricey for the volume that they throw it. Even with Brooks, the volume's low, but because he's only 4K, that's a value play there. Now, moving over to this UCF SMU game. This one is a little interesting. It's definitely not the same appeal of like a high-scoring game that you would think a UCF SMU game would have. SMU is the perfect game script. No defense, ton of offense, throwing the ball over the place. But this UCF defense is beatable. I just don't love their offense, which makes it hard for me to kind of stack here. Keene is boring. Doesn't do much. He'll throw a little bit, but I just don't think there's enough upside to play Keene. Isaiah Bowser you can play at 6,300. I still think he's a little bit overpriced, but he's the guy that's probably going to score points, and he's been pretty good. So you could play Bowser. And then the big news will be on Jalen Robinson. If Jalen Robinson's fully healthy and is going to play, then he's a pretty good value at 5,900. I think Ryan O'Keefe is a little overpriced. If Jalen Robinson's banged up or not getting all the snaps, it's probably not worth it. So not a lot to love on the UCF side. On this SMU side, Mordecai is great, but at 8,700, I'd rather go some of these value QBs. I would love this running game if there was clarity. Bentley came back last week. He didn't get a full share, so I would like to know what Bentley's role will be this week. If Bentley is splitting time. It's hard to play either one. If Bentley is taking over the running back, then I would love Bentley, but I don't think that's going to happen. If Siggers is going to get RB1 carries and dominate the backfield, I would play Siggers too. I think Siggers at 5,600 is a good price. My only concern is I don't know what the split's going to look like. So if we get some clarity on that, I'd play the guy who gets the majority of the carries, but we'll need to know that first. And then on the receiver end, I think that, between Gray, Roberson, Rice, and Calcaterra, they're all in play. They just spread the ball around, so it's hard to target one. I'd prefer the Roberson or probably Roberson just for value, right? The best price. Gray was the best receiver recently, but I'd take the salary savings in Roberson here. Mordecai was disappointing last week. There's rivalry games, anything can happen. Usually that game's a high-scoring game. Ended up being pretty low-scoring. So, Ivan, Mordecai cost you. But I'll go back to my strategy. I went against it myself. It's time to learn my own lesson, especially in college DFS, more often than not, it's easier to build a winning lineup with value quarterbacks because you find a quarterback with a good price and a good game script, the points will come. It's hard to find value receivers that get 3 targets a game or value running backs that get 5 or 6 carries. So you can find a value quarterback that gets you those 30 points. So I try to get my value at quarterback, especially so we can play 2. And then I really try to fill in with the more stars at running back and receiver. So let's stick to our guns. That's our strategy. And that's what we're going to go back to for this week for sure. Now, this Rutgers Indiana game, at first glance, is disgusting, right? Who the heck wants to play anyone on Rutgers or Indiana? But because the players are priced down so much, I do think some guys are in play. The Rutgers quarterback situation, I don't think we can play. Running back, maybe. My concern is that they've started to split carries. I think all the guys here are all 3 young. I don't know how to pronounce Kyle's last name, and Pacheco have all got carries last week. But Pacheco's the guy. I think he's safe for like at least 15 carries. At 4,100, I'm interested. So you can play him. This is not someone that you want to be hammering in by any means. He is not a lock. But, a small exposure in tournaments because he's a good value at 4, I'd be okay with. And then in the receiver end, I actually think the Rutgers receivers are in play. Bo Melton's their best player. They throw to him a lot at 5K. He's a good value. And then Shameem Jones is a punt at almost minimum price. Let's not forget, Krushenk, who's really their number 2, is out. So Shameem Jones should see a spike in targets at 3,100. I think he's worth taking a shot on there. Now, on this Indiana side, I think these guys are in play. The issue is we don't know who's playing, right? There's 3 quarterbacks in my play between McCulley, Penix, and Tuttle, which right now is impossible. So until we get clarity on who the quarterback is, it's hard to make a decision. But they're all under 5K, which is bonkers to me against a bad Rutgers team. At this price points, this is value. These guys can get points at under 5K. I don't understand the pricing. So obviously we need to know who the quarterback's going to be. But if we get a clear-cut starter here, I will be playing one of them. On the running back side, I love Stephen Carr at 5,300. He can get a lot of carries. We want to make sure he's fully healthy. There are some question marks on him. He did have an ankle injury, I think it was last week. So if he's not fully healthy, then we can pivot to Childers, who I would play also at 4,500. So the running back here we're in, again, we just don't have clarity on the injury situations. Now at receiver, there are 3 receivers in play, 2 mainly. Freifogel, I like a lot. At 4,600, he's a go-to receiver. I think he's underpriced here, so this is a really good value. I'd play Freifogel with a quarterback stack and alone. He's going to be one of my higher-owned players. I also like Peyton Hendershot, their tight end, who gets a lot of targets. He's also 4,600. Fills in right behind Freifogel, gets a lot of targets. Both guys definitely in play, and both guys I will be highly exposed to. Now, let's take a look at this Michigan-Penn State game. Cade McNamara had that good game against Michigan State, but the rule is you play any quarterback against Michigan State. He hasn't had a good game outside of that, and they want to run the ball. It's hard to target this passing game. What's interesting is Blake Corum got hurt. So if Blake Corum's out, that makes Haskins one of my favorite plays of the week because he might get 40 carries, which is insane. If Corum plays, then both guys are going to get 20 carries each, coin flip. nothing that's, I don't if they're both splitting, I'm not going to prioritize too much. But if Quorum's out, I really like Haskins. And for a GPP, maybe you do consider Edwards. Maybe they're going to give somebody else carries. We're not 100% sure if it's going to be Edwards. That's just a guess by me. But if you wanted to try someone in a 3K range, maybe someone else steps up and gets some of those Quorum carries. Over here on the Penn State side, they brought the price on Clifford down, I assume because he's playing Michigan, which is a tough defense. But Clifford met value last week. The issue with Clifford is with his injury, he's not running. So if you don't get a running Clifford against a pretty good Michigan defense, I'm having a hard time seeing it. Because he's so cheap, if you want to play him, I'd be okay with it, but it's not for me. This Penn State running game is pathetic, so I wouldn't touch that. And then Dotson's the guy. I mean, Dotson's an NFL receiver. Dotson's awesome, but Dotson's expensive. $8,800. That's a lot against this pretty tough Michigan D. If Dotson was his normal price in the mid-sevens, I'd play him at 88. I just think for your most expensive player, we could do better. If you wanted to filter in Parker Washington, he'd probably be my preferred play. At 4,400, he's pretty affordable. He does get a good amount of targets, so I think he's a pretty good value here. And Lambert Smith is also involved if you want to throw him as a punt play in the 3K range, but my preferred would be Parker Washington. Now, taking a look, we'll move over to this Northwestern-Wisconsin game. Both teams, not great here. Neither team is a team you want to target too heavily. I'm pretty much not interested at all on the Northwestern side. Wisconsin, you can't play their passing game, but Braylon Aaron's interesting. This Northwestern team is pathetic against the run. He has been breaking off some big games. I wonder how popular he's going to be. His price is up there, but it's probably priced appropriately. So he should just, he's going to have a good game. It's just a matter of how good of a game he's going to have. So Braylon Aaron is definitely in play, but not much. No one else really from this game. Now, as is our rule every week, you do not play anyone against Georgia. So that's easy. Fade the entire Tennessee team. And the problem with this Georgia team is they've been killing people. And they spread the running back carries out. They spread the passes out. They even split quarterbacks. So, you can't really target. There's no one to target, right? There's no one that's saying, I can guarantee usage. So, I just don't know who to play. They're going to score points, but it's just they spread the ball around so much. There's not enough of a focus to play around Georgia. And I see Miles in the chat. Games that's cool. I'm glad you're going. It will be fun. I wouldn't recommend playing them against Georgia's defense. This is the best defense in the country. Hooker's awesome. He's fun. Maybe Hooker has a good game, but this is a great Georgia defense. I just think if you want to make money on DraftKings, I don't think targeting the Georgia defense is the best way to go. Now, I think this Miami-Florida State game is interesting. I think this is going to have a really high points total. I think this is definitely a game we want to target. I'll start with Tyler Van Dyke. They've priced him up to 8K, but he's worth it. He's been really good. I don't know why people continue to be like, oh, man, Van Dyke. The kind of people aren't taking him seriously. Take him seriously. He's the quarterback from Miami. Because he's not De'Ara King doesn't mean he's not good. He's not a runner, but he's been good. I like Tyler Van Dyke. I think he's very, very much so in play. This offense has looked better under Van Dyke than it did under De'Ara King, in my opinion. Jalen Knighton, since taking over the starting role, has been lights out rushing and receiving. And there's not a lot of running backs that catch as many passes as Knighton. At $7,900, I think the price is fair, and I will be playing a lot of it. In terms of receivers, Charleston Ramble's the guy. 8K is a little higher for my likings, but he's the guy. He gets a lot of targets. You can play Rambo at 8K. I would have preferred him in the 7K range, but he's playable for sure. If you want more of a salary saver, Harley or Keyshawn Smith I prefer Keyshawn Smith probably. Would be the two value plays. And if you really want to go for a punt, Will Mallory, a tight end at 3,400, can certainly catch a touchdown. Over here on the Florida State side, getting Jordan Travis back is going to be big. Travis is a dual threat quarterback. Really, they just run. They don't throw much at Florida State. So just having a running quarterback like Travis in a game I think is going to have a pretty high implied total. I think Travis is a good value. So you could play him. You could also play Corbin. I think they're pretty similar. Corbin, they're going to run. It's going to be either Corbin or Travis is going to get value for this Florida State team. So that's who I target. I'm not going to look at any of the pass catchers. I don't think they throw the ball enough to be viable. Now let's look at this Iowa State Texas Tech game. This Iowa State defense is pretty good. I don't really want to target anyone on the Texas Tech side. This Texas Tech offense has question marks for sure. Sir Roderick Thompson might score a touchdown. He's affordable 5,200, so fine, but I don't love that. And, Azukama is their best player. He's a really good receiver. Again, this Iowa State team is good. I don't think there's going to be a lot of scoring. So I probably will fade Texas Tech. I do think Iowa State's in play. I like Brock Purdy. He's very hit or miss. I think you can certainly pair Purdy with Xavier Hutchinson, who's got a huge upside at receiver. For cash plays, you can play Kolar. Their tight end is way more affordable. But the really interesting play here is going to be Breece Hall against this Texas Tech defense, that run defense that isn't very good. They're very beatable. Again, Breece Hall is 9,500, which is crazy expensive. I do think he's worth squeezing into a few lineups because I think he can go completely off and have like one of those slate-breaking performances. But I tend to not play too many guys in this price range. I think in college you're better off being more balanced. But I do see the upside for Hall this week against a pretty bad Texas Tech defense. Minnesota, Iowa. This one is going to be easy. Complete fade, both sides. These are two very good defenses and two below-average offenses with a pretty low implied total. I see no need to target anyone for a fantasy perspective from this game. And the last game, wait a minute, we're missing one. Yes, okay, good. Okay, so two more games. The Purdue-Ohio State game. Aiden O'Connell came through us last week against Michigan State, but you always play the quarterback against Michigan State. Their pass defense is pathetic. So Aiden O'Connell's got a bigger challenge ahead with Ohio State. But at 5,400, this is one of those value plays where you can play him and we can squeeze in our stars elsewhere. So O'Connell is in play. He's been playing better the last couple of weeks. Even if you don't include the pathetic Michigan State game, he still has been playing a little bit better. I wouldn't target this run game, but David Bell is one of the best receivers in the country. The prices come down. He's an NFL player. They're going to have to get him involved against this Ohio State team. He's, again, one of my favorite plays. And the price came down. I'm going to be hammering Bell. So Bell is one of my favorite plays of the week. Milton Wright at 4K, another guy I'm interested in. They're not going to be able to run the ball, so they're going to throw a lot. I think the targets will be up. Milton Wright at 4K is affordable and a good play. For tight end, Payne Durham, I just want to make sure he's healthy. He's questionable. If he plays, he's in. They throw him a lot. Payne Durham is very good. I would play Payne Durham if he plays. I just don't know how healthy he is. On the Ohio State side, if I'm going to spend up at quarterback, I guess C.J. Stroud would be one of the guys I would look for. He's a stud. I think this is one of the most explosive offenses in the country. But again, I don't love spending up at quarterback. Travion Henderson is, I think, one of the best backs in the country at 8,500. I would put him on par with some of the guys in the 9K. So Travion Henderson is going to be someone I am playing for sure. And then at receiver, I find it interesting what they did here. They made JSN the highest priced receiver on the team, which he's been the third all year, and they've priced down Wilson Olave. So what that means to me, Wilson was out last week, and I think it looks like Wilson's going to play. Let's just confirm that. But if Wilson plays, I think this is a mispricing, and what that means is hammer Olave and Wilson. My preference, the cheaper Olave at 6,600. I will highly exposed. I'm also like Wilson if he's healthy here at 6,900. Smith-Nigma's been great, and I'm not opposed to playing him, but I don't think he's like $1,000 better than the other two, so I would much rather take my shot on the other two for sure. Now, the last game of the week and my favorite to target, it's going to be fun when it's 4 o'clock and we still have all these players left and we're going to be climbing the leaderboards tomorrow. This Michigan State-Maryland game. Like I said, Michigan State's pass defense is pathetic. We play the quarterback against Michigan State every single week. So, Talia Tagovailoa, his brother was the hero last night. It's his turn. He's my favorite play of the week. He's going to be chalky. I'm not the only one seeing that, but they can't run the ball. Michigan State gets out there, and there's going to almost be no running. They're going to be forced to throw. He's a good passer. He's one of the top 20 passers in the country, And against the pass defense that can't stop a nosebleed, you have to play Tua's brother. At running back, Fleet Davis catches some passes too, so it's almost like you can pair him with him if you want as a way to be different in GPPs. But for the most part, I'm not prioritizing this running game. It's looking at the pass catchers, and the pass catchers here there's a lot of them, and they're all affordable. So I'm gonna pick your poison on who you want to go for. Raheem Jarrett's the number one receiver. I like him a lot. Carriera has had some breaking performances at 4,700. He's affordable and he's capable of going for 100 in a score. So definitely in play. I like Fleming, who's been coming on at 4K. I think he's definitely playable. But my favorite receiver of the bunch is going to be Okonkwo at tight end at 4,200 because this Michigan State team has been getting burnt by tight ends all year. They're terrible at covering tight ends. They threw to Okonkwo 12 times last week. This seems like an obvious spot to target him here. Over on the Michigan State side, I think Peyton Thorne's playable at 7K with or without Naylor. You can play Thorne. Obviously, I wouldn't want to play too much Thorne and Walker, so you just kind of pick your poison. Do you want to go with the passing game or the running game? I think Maryland is not the strongest defense. They can get beat either way. They're obviously going to give Walker a ton of touches, but Walker is 8,900. He's priced up, so he has to do a lot, but he certainly is capable. I'm definitely going to have my shares of him. I'll be exposed, but again, 9K, you can only do so much. But since I'm playing so much of this Maryland side, I definitely will have my exposure to Walker as well. And then on the receiving side, if Naylor's out, I'm going to hammer Jalen Reed at 6,100. I think that's a really fair price for someone who should get funneled a lot of targets. If Naylor's in, I spreads the targets out some. I won't be as prioritizing Reed. I might just play Walker more if Naylor plays. And then depending on Naylor, I like Trey mostly. If Naylor's out, mostly I'll play a lot of. If Naylor's in, I probably won't play mostly. So let's get some injury updates tomorrow before we make that final decision. And that's a wrap. That's the slate for this week. My favorite game to target is going to be that Michigan State Maryland game. So we're going to hammer it home. We're going to be sitting here at 4 o'clock watching our squads climb the leaderboards as we make a lot of money. Please come back next week. Show me your green screens. Let me know how you did. I love seeing success. We had a great week last week. We're going to replicate that again this week. Good luck, fam. And I'll see you next week.